Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel, Adventuring Mum and Borrowed Tum. If you are new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with any new content posted. My name is Lisa. I am mum of 4 beautiful children and also a surrogate. Today's video is going to be based upon a surrogacy agreement. So this is the agreement that is made between an IP, an intended parent, and a surrogate. There are lots of basic information points that are covered in an agreement, but also some deeper and more meaningful scenarios that you will need to discuss moving forward with your surrogacy journey. So the first thing to remember is that any surrogacy agreement that you draw up within your team or with your agency is not legally binding. There is nothing you can do to make that agreement legally binding, even if it is witnessed by a solicitor or you get a solicitor to read over it. Either way, it is an agreement based on trust that is made within your team. It can be great as a point of reference to look back over at what you did agree should anything go wrong in the future, and it's also there as to be able to supply a copy to midwives, to CAFCAS or to agencies or anybody else that may need to see it. An agreement will outline any expectations for the journey from both a surrogate's perspective and an IP's perspective. It is there to be made as an agreement between you both. There may be many templates that you find online, or if you're with an organisation or an agency, they may provide you with a template, but don't forget that is never ever set in stone. An agreement is literally that, and it is completely up to you as a surrogate what you want to include in that agreement, and with your IPs what they want to include in that agreement. So you can take things out, you can put things in, and it is basically what works for both of you. An agreement is basically a personalised plan of your expectations throughout your entire pregnancy, before, during and after. So it is completely personal to you and your team. Now, I personally find it very helpful to look at an agreement with my IPs right at the beginning of my journey. Some surrogates will do that after they've matched and then decide to look through that together. However, I find that agreements bring up a lot of different talking points and will actually help you to decide if you are compatible going forward. So there'll be many basic things that are included within an agreement, such as the names and addresses of both parties, also clinic information, which clinic you're using, contact information for those. There should also be some sort of information regarding the embryos that you are using. Are they tested? Where did they come from? Are there any more? That kind of stuff. There will also be points that say everybody agrees to sexual health tests, to police checks, to screening tests, those kind of things, and whether or not you agree to visit each other's houses, to meet each other's family. Also, whether or not the intended parents are actually telling anybody about their surrogacy journey. For me, if a parent was keeping it a complete secret, that wouldn't work for me. However, that is fully acceptable for other surrogates that I know. Also, are they telling their child how they came about, or will they be keeping that a secret from their child? All of these things do need to be discussed, as some surrogates will have different preferences to IPs. Everybody's difference in opinions is completely acceptable. However, you do need to make sure that you both agree on those things in order to make sure that your relationship is going to be compatible down the line. Also, basic things as vaccinations. Do you agree that you will or you will not have vaccinations during pregnancy, such as whooping cough or flu jabs, more recently COVID jabs, etc. Also, things like life insurance and wills. Are the IPs agreeing to cover those things? Also, are the IPs going to put a clause within their will that says that they have a guardian of the baby and that your expenses will still be paid in the event of anything happening to them? So even if it did happen to both IPs, obviously you are still going to be pregnant with their child. I'm pretty sure I speak on behalf of most surrogates when we say we do not want to keep these children. Therefore, there should be somebody in place to take the child when it is born. Also to consider, do they want additional scans? Do they want 4D scans, harmony tests? Do they want to find out the sex of the baby? Does the surrogate want to find out the sex of the baby? All of these things are to be discussed and to be agreed before you embark on your journey. Discussing birth preferences would also be a good idea at this point. Again, we know that can change completely depending on the situation, but your preferred birth plan and how you would like that to go is always a good thing to put in your agreement. And also discharge information. Will the baby be bottle fed, breastfed? Are you expected to express that kind of thing? A highly important thing for me to put into my agreement is that the baby always comes back to visit my children before the IPs take them home. I think that's quite an important part of my agreement, as my children do need some sort of closure at the end of the journey. They have watched me grow this child, and for me to just come home without it could be quite disheartening for them. So at least they get to say goodbye and get to see another family complete because of what mummy did. So having that in my agreement is something that is quite important to me and my family. There are also many other things to discuss in your agreement that can be quite intense and can also be deal breakers, so you will know whether or not you want to move forward with this relationship or not. One immediate thing that jumps out is terminations. For me, I'm highly against terminations and would try to do anything before allowing a termination to happen. However, some IPs will want to terminate a pregnancy if, for example, the baby may have a minor disability or may have Down syndrome or cleft lip or a missing limb, etc. Now, if your IP wants to terminate the pregnancy and you don't, you're going to be left in a very difficult situation, because the IPs could say, I no longer want this child. If you're going to continue with the pregnancy, they may not pay your expenses, and I highly guess that they will not take their baby at the end of the pregnancy. So the decision for having a termination needs to be discussed. When will you have one? When will you not have one? For me, the end decision lies with the IPs, because they need to be the ones that are going to be taking the baby home at the end of the pregnancy. So I would only match with people that would only terminate on medical reasons and that wouldn't terminate for so-called cosmetic reasons, if that makes sense. So that is something that really does need discussing from the off, so that again you can make sure that you are on the same page with those things. There are many other things that would also need to be discussed and put into your agreement. For example, how long would a surrogate abstain from sex for during the transfer period and during the early pregnancy stages? Obviously, we don't want any complications. We don't want any accidents whereby a surrogate ends up pregnant thinking it belongs to the IPs and turns out that it's actually hers at the end of the pregnancy. It needs to be discussed as to what would happen if, for example, there was a really late miscarriage, or if the baby was stillborn, or if there was a termination. Who takes over funeral arrangements? Who takes over expenses? Will expenses stop? Will they still be paid? All of this stuff needs to be discussed, because it can be quite a difficult time to try and discuss it when those things happen, and disagreements can come about if they haven't been written down for you to refer to at a later date. Another important thing is to try and establish what you both want from your relationship and your journey together. Some parents and some surrogates are quite happy for there to be quite a distance between them and for them to stay pretty separate. Some want to be completely involved and very hands-on and meet up very regularly. It is completely fine, depending on which relationship you want, so long as you both want that sort of relationship. There is no point in me, for example, matching with somebody who doesn't want to be involved and just wants a baby at the end. I want an IP who is fully hands-on, who comes to appointments, who comes to scans, who wants to have a relationship with me and my children after the baby is born, and that wants to form a real friendship. Other surrogates don't want that either. Other surrogates don't want to stay in touch after the birth. Some surrogates just want to go get on with their lives or move on to helping another family, which again is completely fine. For me, I would like to have some sort of contact after the birth, maybe meeting up once or twice a year to see how everybody's getting on and to remain friends. But again, this is something that should be discussed at the beginning so that you both know you are in agreement and you both know you are on the same page with things. So overall, it's just important to remember that agreements should look at all of the different scenarios, all of the different things that could go wrong, all of the different things that could go right, just to put down in writing what you agree, what you don't agree, ensuring that you're on the same page about everything, and including all the different scenarios that could come up so that you are covered at a later date and have something to look back on should any of these situations arrive. So I hope that this clears up some of the information that should be included in an agreement. Of course, remember, you can add anything you wish, take out anything you wish, and it should be something that both parties feel completely comfortable signing. See you guys on the next video, where I shall talk more about parenting orders and medications. Okay, take care. See you on the next video.